Okay, before we get on with our regular scheduled programming, just like in the previous video, we have to give a big plug because later today, at 2:30 p.m. PST, we are going to be live. We're going to be streaming for the entire 2024 NHL Draft lottery, so hang out with us an hour before the event, hang out with us throughout the event. We're going to be doing a lot of things, hanging out, chilling in the chat, reading some questions, answering some answers, and we'll be opening a lot of hockey card packs as well. I got some stuff laying around, and I wanted to open those on camera so I could use the packs as a tax write-off. Yeah, that's exactly how it works, isn't it? But today, we are going over another Detroit Red Wings conversation, and this is going to be an expansion on one of the bigger ideas we've already talked about. Because today we are responding to an article published by Bob Duff on Detroit Hockey Now. The title is very, very simple. Why Steven Stamkos could sign with the Detroit Red Wings, and why he won't. Now, Duff does a really good job at kind of going through all the different scenarios. We're not going to read this entire article. We're just going to use some of the ideas he has here as talking points. But to go over the brief summary on Stamkos before we dive into this entire thing, Stammer is 34 years old, 6'1", 194, right-handed guy, center winger, and his contract expires at the end of this season, $8.5 million a year. Now, I guess I should go out there and give the disclaimer, right? If Steven Stamkos signs a contract extension between the time I'm talking into this microphone and the time this video is public on YouTube, then hey, that's my bad. I apologize for pre-recording my videos and uploading them in advance, especially when they talk about guys that could very well be off the market by the time the video gets up on YouTube. But still, it's a conversation worth having because if Stamkos is not signed, then there still is an open door for everything to fall into place the way we have it here. Stammer is coming off of yet another point-per-game season, 81 points, 79 games played, 40 goals, and he was over a point per game as the Lightning ended up losing to the Florida Panthers in the first round. 6 points, 5 goals, 5 games played, not bad in the slightest for a 34-year-old. But the question is, will the Lightning captain stick around with this team? Now, the article goes out there and talks about some very specific points. It brings over the idea that Steven Stamkos would be an ideal fit on a Red Wings team in desperate need of a second-line center. This is where Duff goes into the variables in a potential Stamkos Red Wings conversation. Firstly, it's the fact that Steven Stamkos is a Red Wings killer. There are few NHL teams that Stamkos has enjoyed playing against more than the Red Wings. In 42 career regular season games against the Wings, he has been good for 23 goals and 42 points. He has twice put the Wings out of the playoffs, too. The article then talks about how the Wings do indeed need a second-line center. And realistically, when you think about that, yeah, no, that's not surprising at all. The argument brought up here is, hey, look at how terrible the Wings were when Dylan Larkin wasn't here. And that is something that I don't want to think about because it was kind of traumatizing. But it does go to show how far this Wings team needs to go in terms of their center depth. Sure, JT Compher is not bad. Andrew Kopp is not bad. Joe Veleno's not bad, but if Dylan Larkin goes out and any one of these guys needs to fill into a top-line role or at least diversify your top two lines so it's a 1A, 1B thing, yeah, good luck with that. Sorry. Having a good second-line center will give stability right down the middle, and it gives guaranteed security if Dylan Larkin ends up leaving the lineup again due to some sort of freak injury that he sustains, maybe at the hands of Matthew Joseph once again, who really knows. But Steven Stamkos would be an immediate upgrade on that center core. The article even uses some quotes from Yzerman saying, hey, we missed the offensive production when Dylan Larkin was out of the lineup. We need another centerman or another impact forward at a different position to offset the loss of the offensive production. This article, speaking of Yzerman, then goes out there and talks about the Yzerman connection. Other than Lightning GM Julien Brisebois, no NHL GM is as familiar to or with Stamkos than Yzerman. He was the Tampa GM the last time Stamkos was a UFA in 2016 and got him to stay with the Lightning against all odds. Could he work that magic touch again and convince Stamkos how vital he'd be in the Detroit Red Wings rebuild? Adding a center of Stamkos' ilk would slot everyone into the lineup correctly. Compher would drop down to the third line where his skills are best suited for. Kopp could slide over to the wing. Stamkos could also be a center if needed to get DeBrincat to become a more consistent scorer. That's also an underrated element that I didn't recognize as well, too. Hey, if DeBrincat is going through another slump, which he very well could be because I don't know if you noticed, but he was not the most consistent the past season, Sure, he scored a lot of points, but the goal scoring, I mean, he had most of his goals in the first 9 games of the year. Not really the most consistent in that respect, but hey, leave it to Steven Stamkos, a multi-time 40-goal scorer, a one-time 60-goal scorer, to go out there and potentially keep DeBrincat on his toes. The article then goes out there and asks whether or not the Red Wings could afford Stamkos. Okay, they would need to re-sign a bunch of dudes. Raymond, Seider, RFAs. There is some potential to bring back a Patrick Kane or maybe a Perron or a Gostisbehere. So Bob Duff actually does conclude here that to make Stamkos fit into the picture, Yzerman would likely be required to move 1 or 2 contracts off his team's ledger, and then it asks, will there be takers to help make this happen? Of course, everybody can recognize that there would need to be some moves made to get that freed up money, because the easiest question to ask, hey, Stamkos going over to Detroit, the easiest question is, with what money? How? Stevie Y, you might want to reunite with your guys, but is that even possible at this point? We know it would make the Wings better, but just, can you do it? Now, the thing is, you're seeing 2 teams in the title and thumbnail of this video, and that's because this article also does include an extra tidbit. It is a tweet made by Mark Allred that goes out there and describes a spicy take from New England native and former NHL defenseman Keith Yandle on the recent episode of the Empty Netters podcast. Of course, the former Iron Man went out there and had his own thoughts. He says he feels that Tampa Bay Lightning forward Steven Stamkos will leave Tampa Bay in free agency and head further south to the Miami metro area to join the Florida Panthers. The reason this article is bringing this tweet into the fray is because, hey, who's to say that Stamkos would even want to come to Detroit? And with this idea in mind, too, of course, Keith Yandle, he's a former Florida Panther himself, so if there's any team that he might go out there and toot the horns of, it might just be the Cats. But could you imagine? I mean, the Panthers and the Lightning have already shared a few players in the past. Carter Verhaeghe, Jonathan Marchessault, a few extra names come to mind right away. But Stammer? Dude. That'd be like McDavid going to the Flames. That would be like Crosby to the Capitals. That would be on the same level. Now, sure, the guy might be older. Steven Stamkos might not be in his prime, per se, anymore, but he is still a point-per-game guy, a 40-goal guy, and playing alongside of some of the best players that Florida has to offer that are not named Kucherov. That might actually be a pretty interesting career move, maybe a lateral move even, if you wanted to stretch it. I mean, the Florida Panthers don't have to pay state tax for any of their player contracts either, so all the advantages that Tampa Bay has, you could say Florida has it in spades too. How crazy would that be to see Steven Stamkos take his talents from one Florida team to the next and see this Panther squad, which already made the finals in 2023 and might very well just do so again this year, cough cough, unless Boston has anything to say about that. Imagine Tkachuk and Stammer on the same team. Imagine the goal-scoring potential of Reinhart and Stamkos. Would they step on each other's toes? Would you see a big decline in goal scoring from one because all the production's going to the other guy? Or would they just each get 50 goals? When was the last time a team had multiple 50-goal scorers on the same season? That's crazy to think about. So for Florida, especially, since it's just a prediction made by somebody who happens to be a former NHL player, this is another conversation that I think is worth having as well, especially when you consider the cultural relevancy here. If the Panthers end up losing to the Bruins, they get destroyed in games 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and whatever. Is a Steven Stamkos what they need to get fully back in there and into the postseason finals once again? If Stamkos gets an A on his sweater in Florida and he wins a Stanley Cup in 2025 with that team, where does that rank in Stanley Cup legacies? Because Stammer already has 2 with the Lightning. If he gets another one with Florida next year or something, how crazy does that make his entire career's body of work then at that point? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, whether or not Stamkos could go over to the Wings or to the Florida Panthers, but for now, it's just something to think about, because, hey, if the guy has not signed his contract yet, then the entire floor is open for speculation to run abroad. So, thoughts in the comment section below about Stamkos, the Red Wings, the Panthers. Check out our YouTube channel here on the 2:30 p.m. time frame, because we will be live. We'll be streaming throughout the entire draft lottery. Come check us out, because maybe the Wings get the 1st overall pick or the 5th overall pick or whatever it is, and we have ourselves a highlight reel moment. Who really knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9 and bye.